What if I told you that the garlic in front of me is ready for its first harvest? Because actually there's 3 different ways that we can harvest this delicious crop. The most common way of harvesting garlic is when the bottom half of the leaves have turned brown. You pull it up and then you cure the bulb for a few weeks, and then that'll last many months. The second type of garlic harvest is wet garlic. This is where you harvest the bulb as normal, but you don't cure it. You actually use it fresh. It's a lot juicier and it has a much better flavour exchange in cooking. In fact, I think it's a lot better than cured clove garlic. And the third harvest is green garlic, which allows us to enjoy our garlic up to 12 weeks before the usual harvest time. And that's what we're going to focus on in this video. Green garlic is where you actually treat the harvest a bit like a leek. You don't actually worry about the bulb forming. What you actually eat is the stem. It's not a special variety of garlic or anything. It's simply immature garlic and it's delicious. One of the benefits of green garlic is that if you forget to sow your autumn garlic, you can sow the spring varieties and still have a chance of having a harvest, because I struggle with spring varieties to get it all the way to bulb stage or for it to bulb up. However, you can still enjoy that garlicky flavour without worrying about creating a bulb. Before we talk about harvesting and then how to treat it as its own unique individual crop and make the most of it in terms of your space, it's really important to mention that it's currently early May. We're right in the centre of the Hungry Gap, but green garlic allows you to have that beautiful garlic flavour profile in your cooking during one of kind of the leanest times of year. And I personally would put green garlic up there along the likes of purple sprouting broccoli and asparagus in terms of importance of Hungry Gap harvests that you can get from your garden. When it comes to harvesting green garlic, it's really down to personal preference. For me, I like to harvest it when it's kind of the size of a small leek. So here's a couple of things of green garlic, for example, and here's what I kind of call a small leek for context. So when they get to around this size, which is usually around 10-12 weeks before the final garlic harvest, that is when I start to take up this green garlic. Growing garlic specifically for green garlic actually opens up a few opportunities for us gardeners, because the usual main garlic crop will stay in until around mid-July to early August, and that is a lot of bed space occupied from October until then. However, this garlic here I'm treating as green garlic. It's about to come out. I'm going to harvest it all today, and it's surrounding where I've planted some carrots. So I'm actually going to take this out. This perimeter is then going to be free for me to transplant these shallots in their place. So already the second crop of the season is going in early May. Before I share some clever ways of planting garlic so you can get green garlic and bulb garlic in the same area for less space, I've invited my colleague Sam from Chef Sam Black on Instagram, because Sam is actually by trade your professional chef, so very often it's kind of dangerous in the garden because I'll be, oh, what could you do with this, or what do you think about that? And I thought, well, let's rope you in because we've got some recipes that we'll be sharing on our blog in a second. But for someone who's harvested green garlic, how on earth do you approach this in a kitchen?
So I would treat it basically like a sweet garlicky leek as an ingredient. For the actual cooking of it, treat it more like a leek than garlic. Like, it can be used as a base to dishes, but it's much nicer to celebrate that kind of sweet, more delicate version of the flavour.
It's a very special flavour and a very special crop. Over, say, normal garlic where you dry it and then sometimes it doesn't last the whole winter, is there a way that we can actually preserve this so we can enjoy it for the winter months?
Yeah, so one of the nicest ways of doing it, because it's a very aromatic ingredient, it works really well with fats. So actually on the blog, I've recently released a recipe for making green garlic butter, where you just gently saute your green garlic in a portion of your butter to release those aromatics, capture it in the fat, add it to much more butter with a pinch of salt. blend it together, and then balancing it into a sausage that you can then stick in the freezer. And then whenever you need it, you just cut a little disc off and chuck it in, and it makes amazing garlic bread as well. Incredible garlic bread.
And also something like that is, because of the shape, it's quite easy to stick down the sides of a freezer drawer or something.
Yep, you can lose it pretty easily.
Yeah, well that might be a good thing, because when you're having a sort out in winter, you're like, yes!
Yes.
Reminiscence of spring. So on our blog, Farmer and Chef, we actually have a fair few green garlic recipes for you to try. But is there any one in particular you'd love to highlight, and you could say, if you could only try it once, try it this way?
It probably sounds a little bit boring, but we actually made a version of a leek potato soup using green garlic instead of leeks. And it was, oh my god, is it dying or something?
I was trying so hard not to. So long.
Yeah, it's got good diaphragm control, isn't it?
Okay.
Ready. So one of the easiest and probably one of my favourite ways of doing it is we actually adapted a version of a leek potato soup where we took the leeks out and we put green garlic in, and just that sweetness of it really complements the potatoes, and we put a little bit of whole grain mustard in there as well, which was gorgeous.
Yeah, so if you need something to do as soon as you harvest your first green garlic, try the soup and everything else. I quite like the look of that hummus, but enjoy the recipes. This is just a concept, but when I plant out my garlic cloves, usually they're around 4 inches or 10 centimeters apart. One idea that I have that I'm going to try this, well, for the next growing season, is to actually plant the bulbs around 2 inches, 5 centimeters apart, and then harvest every other one as a green garlic, and then leave the ones that are left over to then grow normally and develop the bulbs, which means in that same space behind me we can get 2 different crops without having to actually expand the growing area. One thing that I tried to experiment here in the polycrop was to sow some garlic, which is growing to the right of me, to treat as a green garlic crop and to try and get it a month or 2 earlier. But I think it's just honestly too warm in here. What's happened is that they've got a lot of height, but there's not much thickness in the stem. However, I wouldn't discard growing garlic in a polytunnel because that's only got 1 layer of insulation, and that's something I'll try this year with the hope of actually getting green garlic about a month earlier than what I can outside. But watch this space. I believe that there's a lot of opportunity for us to use green garlic as a core player in our hungry gap and the way that we produce food and approach self-sufficiency. But if you've not grown garlic before, or you're struggling to get good crops, this video right here shows you the complete guide from planting the cloves to harvesting to get a really abundant garlic harvest from your space.